Way to go, Tic Tac!
That's how you punch.
Wakanda forever!
You wouldn't have heard of me.
Let me put you on hold.
Dance off, bro! He's a friend from work!
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.
What up, guys? It's Dom, and welcome back to another movie review. Today we are going over and ranking Barbie. Barbie. Released in 2023, written and directed by Greta Gerwig, Barbie and Ken are having the time of their lives in the colorful and seemingly perfect world of Barbie Land. However, when they get a chance to go to the real world, they soon discover the joys and perils of living among humans. Now, I actually never watched this movie during the whole Barbenheimer phase of 2023. I don't know why. I just didn't see myself liking the Barbie movie. But I finally decided that it was time for me to at least see it for what it is, and I actually found myself enjoying it. I thought the movie was way better than I was expecting, so let's just get right into the 10 essential aspects of a movie. The first essential aspect is plot. So I'll say that this plot is interesting, because usually when it's a movie about, let's say, toys that are come to life, it's either that they are literal toys in the real world, like Toy Story, for example, or you are just viewing the perspective of the toys in their world. Like, I don't know a good comparison to that. Like Lightyear. Yeah, let's say that. Where he is technically a toy, but you're basically seeing him go on his adventures in that sense. But this is actually a happy mix between the two, because it is Barbie's world, but goes into the human dimension, where they're playing with Barbies instead of being the Barbies. But the actual, how the worlds are intertwined is the most interesting part to me. How they are living their lives, but they know that it's someone playing with them. It's not the fact that they don't know that they're actual toys, like in the Lego movie, for example, where they don't know like they are, but you find out later in the movie that they are. No, they know the entire time. They know that they are Barbies. They know that they are dolls doing the same thing every single day, and that is their life, and they are fine with that. Which I thought was very unique and a very interesting spin on how I thought the movie was going to go. So plot-wise, I think it was actually really well written. The second essential aspect is attraction. So when it came of the actual entertainment value that this movie had, it wasn't much for me. I personally never played with Barbies, so I don't have that same kind of interaction that you are expected to have with this movie, to a point. But I thought the concept was the most attractive part to me. I thought the actual concept was interesting and was the thing keeping me involved in this movie. So that, they definitely did well. But again, they had a specific marketed audience for this kind of movie, and that specifically wasn't for me. The third essential aspect is theme. There was plenty of messages that were meant for the audience in this movie, but I think the strongest one, that is honestly one that everyone should really realize if they haven't already, is that nobody's perfect. Not even Barbie, who was literally designed to be able to do anything and be the perfect girl. It did not. It's just not how life works. Like it says multiple times, it's just not how life works. Every person that exists has something that has happened to them that was not what they intended, not ideal, otherwise not perfect. So that's the message that they brought out probably the most in this movie. So that's the one I'm going to be sticking with. The fourth essential aspect is dialogue. So overall, I'll say the dialogue was good. There were some parts between actual people talking between each other that didn't feel like real conversations, felt very comedy-esque, where they were just trying to be funny or trying to get a laugh out of the audience, when it really didn't need to be. It could have stayed somewhat more serious. But when it was the actual Barbie dolls and Ken dolls talking between another, that's when I think the dialogue was really key. I think they did a good job of showing that these are dolls. The way that they talk is really just what they've learned from their world and what's on their box, for example. So the type of speech they have is very different than when they're put into the real world, when Barbie and Ken go into the real world and realize that's not really how their language is. Like, it's very similar. You can still understand what they're saying, but they realize key grammar that they differ with when it comes to actual people. So I think that was a cool detail that maybe I just noticed, but it wasn't intended to be very noticeable, but I noticed that, and it definitely did enhance the viewing experience for me. The fifth essential aspect is acting. So I actually didn't see any bad acting in this movie at all. I thought everyone did their job perfectly fine. And I do have to say, Margot Robbie, who played Barbie, did an amazing job. I think she was the perfect candidate to be picked as Barbie, not just because of her looks, but because of the way that she really put herself in Barbie's shoes and played the character well. I feel like the way that she portrayed that character was marketed towards many different audiences. There was some parts that were more towards the kids that are going to be watching it, and some parts that the adults can also enjoy. So I thought that was a good mix that she did with the character of Barbie. And Ryan Gosling as Ken, also one of the main characters, but I kind of saw him as somewhat of the side character, somewhat of the villain, just in general has a big part, but obviously doesn't have the spotlight as much as Barbie, which again is part of the plot. But I think that he also did a really good job of being this Ken doll that wants to get out of the shadows and be as big as Barbie is. So I thought both did a really good job of portraying their characters in a way that can be enjoyable for everyone. But everyone else that was in this movie also did not disappoint. They did their job great. The sixth essential aspect is cinematography. So obviously cinematography is about the visuals and emotion during the movie. The emotion captured in this movie was good. You clearly felt the chemistry between Barbie and Ken, and you did want things to work out for the both of them at the end. But because you kind of had to pick sides during this movie, it was kind of hard to really be emotionally attached to one in general. But I still think they did a good job of making that relationship feel real enough where you want to root for them in the end. But when it came to visuals, I understand why they did it the way there was, where the background was kind of a still image, because that's how it would be, for example, when you get a Barbie dream house and the background of where the house is just on the box on a flat surface. So everything does look really two-dimensional besides the Barbies and the homes and those sort of things. So I understand why they did that, and it is very clever, and I do have to give them credit for that. It just, for me, it made the movie less realistic in not just a toy way, but in general in a way that pulled me out. Obviously, as I just said, I still understand why they did it. I feel like that was the right move to make. I don't know, it just didn't sit with me correctly when watching a movie. But besides that, I mean, the movie looked fine. They did what they did necessary, and they did it well. The seventh essential aspect is editing. So this movie is an hour and 54 minutes long, and I think that's a pretty good length. They didn't need to extend the story past that 2-hour mark. They did everything they needed to do with the actual plot itself and character development throughout the whole movie and came to a finite ending. I think they did fine. If the movie was shorter, it would also be okay. I'm glad they didn't push it any further. The eighth essential aspect is soundtrack. So I'm not going to say the soundtrack is memorable to the point where I remember the music playing in each scene. However, I do have to say, while watching it, I did enjoy the soundtrack. I think it fit the characters well to the point where you'll remember that it was a good soundtrack, you just won't really remember what the soundtrack was. The ninth essential aspect is directing. So I feel like it's the director's job to take these previous 8 essential aspects, put them together to make a movie that's worth watching. And the director of this movie was Greta Gerwig, and she's previously directed 3 other movies, and they were Nights and Weekends, Lady Bird, and Little Woman. And I've never seen any of these other 3 movies, so I don't really know what her resume is to really judge her on the fact if she should have been the one directing this movie. But based on how this movie went, I don't think she messed up anything. I feel like she did well in every category. Obviously, nothing was perfect in every category, but she did well. It was an overall good movie that I can see myself watching again. So I think she did deserve to direct this. And the 10th essential aspect is time. So this movie came out in 2023. It's 2 years old now, and I feel like it still stood the test of time. I feel like I still hear people talking about Barbenheimer, for example, that weekend where both movies were popping. Everyone was enjoying it. Everyone was seeing both of those movies at the same time. So I feel like both Oppenheimer and Barbie are going to stand the test of time, really due to that specific occasion that happened, but also because they're both good movies. So yes, Barbie is a good movie. I feel like it will stand the test of time as one of those movies about toys, based on toys, that actually did well and exceeded expectations. Now, onto the reviews. So, Rotten Tomatoes critics gave it an 88%, Rotten Tomatoes audience gave it an 83%, and IMDb gave it a 68%. Now, I thought this movie was good, so I don't think 68% would sum it up really, really well. I think in the 80s is a pretty good range. I'd put it right in between Rotten Tomatoes critics and Rotten Tomatoes audience. I think 85 to maybe even a higher, to like a high 80, is a pretty good place to put it, because it doesn't really do anything wrong. It does everything it needs to do, and it's really the points that just I'm not okay with are really just the audience that is targeted for. So since I am not someone that has played with Barbies or enjoys playing with Barbies currently, or just is really, I don't really care about that world in general. So it's not my cup of tea. I enjoyed it for the subtle details that I noticed, the actual intriguing plot and concept. That part I actually is why I enjoyed this movie, but the rest really wasn't for me. So I'm giving it in the mid 80s. It could be higher if I enjoyed Barbies like that, I probably would put it higher. But because I don't, I had to docket those points. But otherwise, it's a well-made movie and it deserves to be up here. And finally, the rankings. So, in 2023, it's going to be first above Thanksgiving. Now, to me, this wasn't really a hard choice. Barbie is very rewatchable. It has an interesting plot, interesting characters. It has a concept that's intriguing enough for a rewatch. And Thanksgiving, as good of a movie as it is, I love the movie. I love how the concept is actually intriguing, just like in Barbie. And I love mysteries, so obviously my first watch of that was incredible. However, the rewatchability is not there. It's really not there. Once you watch this once, you can never watch it again with having the same level of enthusiasm and entertainment because you know who the main killer is. So it's not going to be a secret, which is half of the reason you watch murder mysteries. So for that reason, it was very clear that Barbie is going to be over Thanksgiving. In the 2020s, it's going to be 8th, above Alien Romulus and below Speak No Evil. Now, Alien Romulus is incredible cinematically. I think it is a really well-made movie that looks really, really good. I just personally didn't enjoy the plot as much as some of the other Alien movies, and in general, as most movies, I didn't see myself getting sucked into it too much. I felt like it also heavily relied on you needing to watch the previous movies beforehand. As its own movie, it wouldn't really bring you as much enjoyment as if you watched it after watching all the previous ones. And because I only watched the previous ones once, some things really didn't click in my brain during that movie, which I think definitely hurt it. But maybe if I rewatch them, I might think higher of it. But for me, it just, as well as it looked, it wasn't as good as people have been saying it was, at least for me. And I put it below Speak No Evil just because that movie it scratches the right itches for me. It is suspenseful. It has a very interesting plot and concept, and the acting is really, really well done. So that is really the only reason I put it over Barbie, because the acting is good in Barbie. The concept's interesting and the plot's good and all. I just found myself enjoying watching Speak No Evil more than this. So that's really the only reason, is just pure enjoyment. And that's the same reason it's above Alien Romulus. And in all time, it's going to be 23rd, above The Thing and below Spectral. Now, it is barely above The Thing. The only reason why it's above it really is just the cinematography. I feel like that movie The Thing isn't as scary as it should be, and that is partially because the alien is just not scary. He is very gross looking and very unappealing to look at. If the movie was, I know they made one in 2011 too, I never watched it, but if the movie could have just a better CGI alien and just that's the only thing that changes, The Thing would be one of my favorite movies. So that's really the main reason why Barbie is above The Thing and it's below Spectral, because both are good movies in general. They have good plots, they have good acting, they just have good concepts overall. I just found myself enjoying the concept of Spectral way more than Barbie. Now, Spectral is one of those that the rewatchability isn't as good because you know why. The whole reason of trying to figure out who these spectrals are is out the window because you know already. But I think the journey that you take and that the characters take watching that movie, just it won't lose rewatchability as much as like a murder mystery. I feel like seeing the characters still try to figure out what these spectrals are and come to that conclusion is still an enjoyable watch, which is why it's above Barbie for me. That's all I have for Barbie. If you guys enjoyed this review, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and make sure to comment what movie you want me to review next. If you enjoyed this kind of movie review style that I do with the 10 essential aspects and the rankings in the year, decade, and all time, check out my best friend, Mr. Majoritarian. He also does movie reviews in the same exact format. Of course, he just has a slightly different opinion. So if you want to see someone that does the same thing but with a different opinion, check him out. His link will always be in my description. And let me know what you guys thought of Barbie or Oppenheimer or Barbenheimer. I mean, they basically came out at the same time, and they both did great. I'm probably going to watch Oppenheimer soon just to kind of revamp that, since I also never watched that. But either way, let me know what you guys think of either of those movies in the comments. And still, don't forget to comment what movie you want me to review next. I hope you guys have an amazing night. Peace out.